Missouri gained its statehood in 1821, joining the Union on August 10th, becoming the 24th state of the United States. It's a history that stretches back much further than that, though, with humans inhabiting the area for well over 12,000 years. Missouri played a central role in the westward expansion of the United States, as honored by the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. The Pony Express, Oregon Trail, Santa Fe Trail, and the Californian Trail all began in Missouri. As a border state, Missouri's role in the American Civil War was complex. It was subject to rival governments, raids, and guerrilla warfare. After the war, both Greater St. Louis and Kansas City metropolitan area became centers of industrialization and business. With the long, lush history of Missouri, many bizarre and frightening and unexplainable things have all occurred within the state's borders. The following stories and accounts are not for the faint of heart. Members of the Latter-day Saint movement, founded by Joseph Smith, had gradually migrated from New York to northwestern Missouri since about 1831, mainly settling in Jackson County, where tensions then grew with non-Mormon residents led to anti-Mormon violence. The Mormons were evicted from Jackson County in 1833 and resettled in new counties nearby, where tensions continued to grow again and again, and attempts to evict them returned. However, the peak of the violence came in late October of 1838 at the Battle of Crooked River between Latter-day Saints forces and Missouri State Militia unit from southeastern Elmira, Missouri, in Ray County. The battle resulted in 4 fatalities and the mutilation of militiaman Samuel Tarwater. It was said that Tarwater was struck unconscious during the battle, and the Latter-day Saint forces then maimed him with their swords, striking him lengthwise in the mouth, cutting off his under teeth, and breaking his lower jaw, cutting off his cheeks, and leaving him for dead. The deaths and mutilation of the Battle of Crooked River led to Lilburn Boggs, the governor of Missouri at the time, to issue the Missouri Executive Order 44, ordering the Mormons to leave Missouri or be killed. Now, Missouri Executive Order 44 became known as the Mormon Extermination Order, and on November 1st, 1838, Smith surrendered at Far West, the church's headquarters, ending the war. Smith was then charged for treason but escaped custody and fled to Illinois with the remainder of the estimated 10,000 Missouri Mormons, establishing the new settlement of Nauvoo. General Clark cited Executive Order 44 soon after the Mormon settlers, mostly unarmed and poor immigrants, saying that violence would have been used had they chosen not to surrender. Clark additionally stated this: "I do not say you shall go now, but you must not think of staying here another season, or of putting in crops, for the moment you do this, the citizens will be upon you, and if I am called here again, in the case of non-compliance of a treaty made, do not think I will do as I have now. You need not expect any mercy but extermination, for I am determined the governor's orders be executed. As for your leaders, do not think, do not imagine for a moment, do not let it enter in your mind that they will be delivered and restored to you again, for their fate is fixed, their die is cast, and their doom is sealed." In harsh winter conditions and with little preparation, 15,000 Mormons immediately fled for Illinois. In all, the total number of wounded, dead, and other atrocities is unknown as a result of the Mormon War, and Executive Order 44 is still a hotly debated among Mormons and historians. The more amazing part of the story is that Missouri Executive Order 44 was not rescinded until late 1975, and nearly 140 years later, meaning it was legal in Missouri to kill Mormons. It seems the government at the time, over time, had forgotten about the order until President Lyman F. Edwards of the Far West stake of the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints invited then Missouri Governor Kit Bond to participate in an annual conference as a goodwill gesture for the United States bicentennial. The Landers Theater in Springfield, Missouri, built in 1909, is the second largest and largest civic theater operation in all of Missouri. This over-century-old building has a sparkling reputation as being home to some ethereal creatures. It has been in continuous use either as a legitimate theater or a movie theater since it has opened in the early 1900s. In 1928, the theater became the 35th facility in the world to acquire sound films. A fire in 1920 had completely destroyed the stage area, resulting in the death of the facility's janitor. Many actors who have rehearsed on the renovated stage claim to have seen the spirit of this deceased janitor. It is said that he will watch the rehearsals from the balcony above, offering nothing other than his ghostly gaze. And another account that has been reported by multiple onlookers is that of a man seen peering out of a fourth-story window. This man is described as wearing Victorian-era clothes with long blonde hair. It is unknown, though, what this man's identity is. Some believe it to be a long-deceased actor, while others believe he may be from another time period altogether, possibly dying on the site that the theater was eventually built on. Other accounts are of the sound of a crying baby in the theater, heard by actors during rehearsals. It is said that the cries are that of a child that was killed long ago after it was dropped from the balcony. Some have even witnessed the ghost of this fall, the infant plunging repeatedly to its ultimate death. And possibly the most astonishing vision was that of a middle-aged man who seemed to be a lighting director. When the current operator asked for the man's help, the man turned, walked away, and vanished behind one of the columns. The technician described the man as a taller, with a thick beard and bushy eyebrows, a description verified by a group of people who were on the balcony. And at the time, the group had been playing with a Ouija board and contacted a spirit named Ned, who matched the technician's description. Carrico Road in North County, Missouri, is a secluded street in the unincorporated part of St. Louis. The street itself is lined with multiple no trespassing signs, an attempt to ward off the many visitors who, for the past 40 years, have been attempting to get a glimpse of what many folks say lies at the end of the road. Carrico Road is known by its nickname, Bubblehead Road, named after the family of disfigured humans that took up residence there many, many years ago. At least, that is how the legend goes. Where these bubbleheads came from, well, there are many theories. Some say they are a family who took experimental drugs that caused their heads to swell to the size of a large pumpkin. The government or the drug companies paid them off and hid them away on the isolated road just south of the Missouri River. Others say that the bubbleheads are an old St. Louis family with actual physical deformities from years of inbreeding. They keep to themselves or they attack trespassers in a flurry of rage. Some stories about the area reference hookmen, who stalk the night, mysterious hitchhikers from the great beyond, or simply ghosts with big, swollen heads. Now, despite the many stories and legends, there may be a hint of truth to the story. No matter what you believe, some of the older residents in the area have a memory of a boy who lived at the far end of the street at a long time ago. The boy had hydrocephalus, which is a buildup of fluid in the brain that causes the head to visibly swell. The fluid is a clear, colorless body fluid called cerebrospinal fluid that we all have in our brains to regulate and protect the cortex. The condition is also known as water in the brain. Along with the physical deformities of a swollen head, many individuals suffering from this ailment will develop mental disabilities and epilepsy. Supposedly, the boy would play outside wearing a helmet to protect his sensitive skull. It is said, though, that the family moved away a long time ago in an attempt to protect the boy and avoid further harassment. This old stretch of road in Ellisville sends shivers down the spines of many. The stories associated with the old roadway nicknamed Zombie Road are plentiful. Located just outside of St. Louis, the original name of the road was Lawler Ford Road, and it was constructed in the late 1860s, even being used by the Army during the Civil War. It was originally constructed to gain access to the Merrimack River and the railroad tracks located along it. The road began to be referred to as Zombie Road as early as the 1950s. Now, eventually, over its 100 years of existence, the road fell into poor conditions and was deserted and mostly vacant. The isolated location made the Lawler Ford Road a destination in the 1950s as a local meeting place for teenagers for gatherings where they drank, smoked, and committed other more promiscuous acts. Over the years, the road gained a reputation for being haunted. A popular story, and the reason for the name, is that of the zombie killer, a strange man who lived in a shack in the woods who was struck and killed by a passing train. It is said that the man became undead, a zombie, and as an act of revenge on the living, would attack young lovers looking for a place to be alone. Another popular story is that of a man who was hit by a train and is still said to be wandering the tracks where his death occurred so many moons ago. To add to this ghost story is the tale of Miss Della McCullough, who was the wife of a local judge. Now, it is said that the judge was the man who was hit by a train and died in 1876, but upon investigation, there doesn't seem to be any reports or records indicating that a death occurred via train in the area at the time, leading some to believe that the ghost seen walking the tracks is actually Della McCullough herself. Besides the wandering spirit that is believed to be Della, it is believed there may be more accidental victims along the rail lines. Over the years, these sharp bends in the tracks at Glencoe were the site of frequent derailments, to the point of that part of the service was discontinued. These stories are not only ones tied to Zombie Road specifically, because the place seems more sinister and haunted than just ghosts on a train tracks or killers in the woods. Near the old shacks and crumbling homes sighted along the beach area at the end of the trail, one phantom sighting includes that of a shadowy old lady who yells at those who walks by her house. This isn't a case of old man yells at clouds, but upon further examination, the woman is never actually ever there. There's another story of sightings of an apparition believed to be the ghost of a boy who fell from the bluffs along the river and died, whose body was never found. A long history of the original native tribes who once lived in the area also explain why sightings of Native American ghosts have been reported. In fact, it is possible that at least parts of Zombie Road originated as a native trail. Through the years, reports from Zombie Road have been everything from zombies to ghosts of Native Americans, children, old ladies, Confederate soldiers to strange noises, footsteps, yada yada yada, and other strange things. But no matter what you may believe when it comes to ghosts or hauntings, one thing is for certain, there's definitely something off about Zombie Road. Did you know that there was an alleged UFO crash that predates Roswell by nearly 6 years? Well, there is. In fact, on April 12th, 1941, it is said that an alien spacecraft crash-landed in the fields of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. As the story goes, a reverend by the name of William Huffman was called on that April evening to read the last rites of the passengers of what was believed to be a plane crash. The reverend was taken by car to a location about 18 miles outside of the town of Cape Girardeau, towards a neighboring town. When arriving on the scene, the reverend was met with not the wreckage of a plane crash like he first believed, but a round silver disc, a flying saucer. The crash had begun a fire in a local farmer's field, and police, as well as firefighters, were already on the scene trying to take care of the new blaze. The size of the spacecraft alone was torn open, revealing two extraterrestrials. One seemed already dead, while the other was still alive, although barely, as it was gasping for breath. The Reverend allegedly took a closer look into the spacecraft, where he found wires and modules of some alien foreign layout, strange symbols marking the walls and buttons and knobs and dials. The Reverend was only able to take a look around the crash site for a short while before the Army Air Corps arrived from nearby Sykeston Field. They then marked off the entire area and swore everyone to secrecy, confiscating pictures and any other items that might have been taken that night. It has even been said that there is a surviving photo of that night somewhere, showing two men holding one of the aliens' bodies. Now, this story of the crash remained secret, right? Held on to by those who were there, but here and there, these stories leaked out, passed on to later generations. The story came to full light in the 1970s when the Reverend William Huffman's granddaughter, Charlotte Mann, told the story while on her deathbed, breaking the tight-lipped secrecy of the last 30-odd years. She claimed to have even seen some of these alleged pictures from that night in April of 1941. So, what happened following the crash? What was done with the bodies of these aliens, and what happened to the technology that was discovered in the ruins there? One theory is that the government came to dispose of the evidence, taking everything to New York, where they hid it in a secret laboratory in New York beneath the Empire State Building. Here, they studied technology and alien biology. What they discovered was then used to help the United States and their allies win World War II, supposedly. Part of the aliens' craft propulsion system was applied to the U.S. nuclear weapons program. helping in development of the atomic bombs dropped on Japan just 4 years after the crash in Missouri. Although there is no record or evidence available to the public that indicates that there was any sort of crash that happened on April 12, 1941 in rural Missouri, but ask any local and they will tell you the truth behind what actually happened and the entire government cover-up that followed. After all, this story has become a part of the town's identity. The Ozarks is a physiographic region in northern Arkansas and southern Missouri. There are actually two mountain ranges in the Ozarks, the Boston Mountains of Arkansas and the St. Francois Mountains of Missouri. It's here, in these mountains, that the legendary Ozark Howler prowls. The Ozark Howler, also known as the Ozark Black Howler or the Devil Cat, gets its name from the frightening sound of its howl that many claim to hear echoing through the night, as well as its unnerving appearance. Howler is described as being about the size of a bear with a solid body, a thick set of legs, black shaggy fur, and prominent horns. Others have described it as a large cat with evil glowing eyes. Its cry is often described as being a combination of a wolf's howl and an elk's bugle. Its sound has also been described as a very deep and guttural, as well as a high-pitched howl. Others have said that it's the most unearthly scream and half-human. One of the most common descriptions of the sound is like the screams of a woman. Sightings have been officially recorded since the 1950s, though many Ozark families have passed down stories from, well, before the time, between 2005 and 2010. The Ozark Howler was spotted several times, with one family claiming to have actually caught the creature on their trail camera. Officials then believed that what was captured was a cougar, though it has been admitted that there was no breeding cougar population in the area, leading many to question what it was that the trail camera actually had captured. Some believe the Ozark Howler may have come from a different time and different space altogether. You see, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, and English settlers homesteaded the Ozarks Plateau in the mid-late 1800s, and they brought with them their ancestral stories and mythologies. In fact, one such story was a mythological hound that is feared as a harbinger of death. The settlers believed the hound would come to bear away the soul of a person to the afterlife. The hounds of death went by other bizarre names. Did these immigrants bring with them their own grim reaper when they settled in the Ozarks, or is it all just a fairy tale passed down from generation to generation? What do you think? The Spooklight, also called the Hornet Spooklight, Hollis Light, and Joplin Spooklight, is a ghost light reported to appear in a small area known locally as the Devil's Promenade, on the border between southwestern Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma, west of the small town of Hornet, Missouri. Some date the first encounters with the light back to the Trail of Tears in the 1830s. In fact, the first documented sighting is generally accepted to have occurred in 1881, although some report sightings as far back as 1866. The earliest published report dates back to 1936 in the Kansas City Star. Sightings of the Spooklight are common, sometimes even reported to be seen inside vehicles. In fact, a few people who have been walking along the road at night have even claimed to have felt the heat of a ball as it passed near them. Early residents of the area had reported seeing lights in the woods, over their land, or even in their own yards. The Spooklight is mysterious and usually described as a singular ball of light or a tight grouping of lights that is said to appear regularly, usually at nighttime. The ball of light, described as varying from the size of a baseball to a basketball, dances and spins down the center of the road at high speeds, rising and hovering above the treetops, before it ultimately retreats and then disappears. Others have stated that it sways from side to side like a lantern being carried by some invisible force. According to some locals, the best time to view the Spooklight is between the hours of 10 p.m. and midnight and tends to shy away from large groups and loud sounds. Admirers say the best chance for catching a glimpse of the light occur after dark when parked on Oklahoma East 50 Road, just 4 miles south of the tri-state junction of Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma in Ottawa County. Some eyewitnesses report a greenish glow, while others define it as orange, red, yellow, or even blue. Numerous legends exist explaining the origin of the Spooklight, the oldest being the story of Quapaw, a Native American maiden who fell in love with a young brave. However, her father would not allow her to marry the man as he did not have a large enough dowry. The pair eloped but were soon hunted by a party of fighters. Now, according to the myth, when the couple was close to being caught, they joined hands above the Spring River and jumped to their deaths. And it was shortly after this event that the light began to appear and was now credited to the spirits of these young lovers. And there's yet another legend that tells of a miner whose cabin was assaulted by Native Americans while he was away. And upon his return, he found that his wife and children were missing, and it is said to continue looking for them along the old road, searching with his lantern, with the light swaying back and forth. Now, others say that the spooklight is the ghost of an old Osage Indian chief who was beheaded in the area and continues to search for his lost head with a lantern high in his hand. Fast forward to 1946, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers studied the Hornet light, but could simply not find a cause for it. In their words, it was a mysterious light of unknown origin. Justifications for the light's presence differ widely, with some claiming that these spook lights are headlights from Route 66. However, the light's phenomena came much before the invention of vehicles. Other explanations for the light's appearance include atmospheric gases being affected by electrical fields. In fact, in 2014, Professor Alan Rice of the University of Central Oklahoma investigated the spook light with a team of investigators called the Boomers, and discovered its source as car headlights and taillights 9 miles west of the viewing spot. He conducted an experiment with the Boomers and was able to recreate a light with the headlights of a car from the junction of East 50 and the State Highway 137, located south of Quapaw. But again, this does not explain why these ghost lights have been reported being seen much before the invention of vehicles. Numerous studies and experiments have been conducted throughout the years to try and explain these unexplainable lights, yet none of them can confidently give a definitive answer as to what they are. So, how could these lights be seen today, just as they had been over 200 years ago? Are they merely just distant lights from vehicles, like many believe, or is there something more? Are there truly spirits from another time? We may never know. On the night of Sunday, May 22nd, 2001, Joplin, Missouri was devastated by a EF5 rated multiple vortex tornado. The tornado reached a maximum width of nearly 1 mile as it tore a destructive path through the southern parts of the city. This particular tornado was unusual in that it intensified in strength and grew larger in size at a very, very rapid rate. In fact, the tornado actually tracked eastward across the city and then continued eastward across Interstate 44 into rural portions of Jasper and Newton counties. Overall, the tornado killed 158 people, injuring around 1,100 others, and caused around $3 billion worth in damages. It was the deadliest tornado to strike the U.S. since the 1947 Glacier-Higgins-Woodward tornadoes, and the 7th deadliest overall. And it also ranks as the costliest single tornado in U.S. history. The insurance payout was around $3 billion, the highest in Missouri history. Now, let's look a little deeper. Some believe that this deadly act of Mother Nature was not her fault at all, but indeed the doing of the United States military. It is believed that the tornado was made due to a research program in Alaska which shot radio waves into the upper atmosphere, resulting in this abnormally large and strong tornado. In fact, there is one YouTuber who predicted that Joplin would be hit due to anomalies on radar maps created by the government-funded HAARP, which also stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Another strange happening during the tornado was reports of butterfly people. There have been multiple people who said they saw pale-looking individuals with large, multicolored wings just like that of a butterfly, and often surrounded by a shimmering illumination or orbs of light, who actually protected citizens during the storm. Everyone, mostly children who claims to have seen them all, describe them the exact same way. And when you have that sort of corroboration between all these different eyewitnesses who don't know each other, there's something there. It was reported that they appeared as the tornado was bearing down on them, or as the storm ripped apart the world around them. It has been said that the butterfly people actually used their wings to shield the victims from the wind and debris being thrown around from the storm, or even redirecting oncoming dangers. One popular account comes from a 2.5-year-old little girl who is also credited with giving the butterfly people their name. The girl was in a car with her father when the tornado came tearing through, and astonishingly, even though the vehicle was blown clear off the road and toppled over, The 2 occupants within were stunned but entirely unscathed. The girl would later say that the butterfly people had been sitting in the car with them, and when she told that nobody else was in the car, she insisted, "No, Daddy, there were butterfly people in the car with us." Another encounter with these beings had allegedly happened when a young boy was riding his truck with his father during the same disaster. You see, another car came flying through the air towards them, and somehow the oncoming vehicle managed to veer off at the last moment so that it just barely missed them. The boy would later say that he had seen 2 very big angels holding back the car at the time and throwing it to the other side. And although only the boy had seen these mysterious figures, the father would admit that there seemed to be no rational reason for why the car should not have smashed right into them. There is also the account of a mother and her young daughter who were also caught in the tornado in their car and actually managed to crawl out of the vehicle in a nearby ditch. The tornado relentlessly approached, destroying all within its path, and yet, amazingly, leaving the 2 uninjured, and the girl supposedly said to her mother, "Weren't they beautiful? Didn't you see how beautiful their wings were?" When the mother told her daughter that there had been no one else there, the girl insisted that they had indeed been surrounded by winged angels with rainbow-colored wings as the tornado had passed right by. There's something there. These are just a few of the many accounts that were reported during the storm. Is this merely a fabrication, or is there truly something going on here? Some believe that these butterfly people were just mass hallucinations caused by the shock and trauma of the events happening. Though, this does not explain why they were seen by multiple people sharing the same details all across the city. In fact, they were described all the exact same way. How do you explain that? Other people believe it may have been guardian angels, and some even believe these to be watchful extraterrestrials. Could these 2 theories, the tornado being made by the government HARP and these strange guardians, be somehow interconnected? Was the storm created just to give these creatures a stage to show themselves or what they could do, or is it all simply a coincidence, or is this whole thing just a massive fabrication? The LEMP Mansion, located at 3322 Domino Place, St. Louis, Missouri, is a historical house in Benton Park, St. Louis, Missouri. It is also the site of 3 suicides by LEMP family members after the death of the son, Frederick Lemp. The mansion is said to be haunted by members of the family. The house, which was constructed in 1890, and in 1911, the house underwent major renovations, including conversion of some spaces into offices for the Lemp Brewery, which then ceased all production when it was sold to an international shoe company at the auction in 1922. The Lemps had lived in the house until about 1949, when Charles Lemp committed suicide in his bed. Now, following the death of Charles Lemp, the mansion was sold and turned into a boarding home. Along with the nearby neighborhood, the building began to decline and the haunting tales began. Tenants of the boarding house complained of ghostly knocks and phantom footsteps being heard all throughout the house at night. As these stories had spread, tenants were hard to find the boarding house and it continued to decline. Then, in 1975, the old Lemp Mansion was given new life when Dick Pointer and his family had purchased it. Right away, they began to work on renovating the building, turning it into a restaurant and an inn. Workers within the house often told stories of apparitions and strange sounds and vanishing tools and a feeling of being watched. Frightened by the hauntings, many would leave the job site never to return, and since the restaurant opened, staff members had reported several strange experiences. But again, apparitions appear and then quickly vanish. Voices and sounds come from nowhere, and glasses will often lift off the bar, flying through the air by themselves. On other occasions, doors are said to lock and unlock by themselves, and lights inexplicably turning on and off on their own free will, and the piano bar often plays when no one is near. It is also said that the attic too is haunted by this monkey-faced boy who is actually the illegitimate son of William Lemp Jr. He had been hidden away to avoid disgrace due to the scandal of being born of an affair and because he had been born deformed. In truth, there was a child born of an affair, but rather than being a monkey-faced boy, he was simply born with Down syndrome. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and also do not forget to that like button. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm a little amped up. I have had a lot of coffee. If you are new to the channel, be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and keep your notifications on so that way YouTube will let you know every time I release a great new piece of content. As always, guys, I love you all. Keep an open mind, and I'll see you all in the very next video.